There is a version of loving your dog too much that most owners never see coming. Not too much love. That is not possible. But too much accommodation, too much restructuring of the household around the dog's preferences, too much interpreting every behavior as a need that must be immediately met. And the result is not a happy dog. It is often an anxious one. A dog that cannot tolerate frustration, that struggles with boundaries, that has developed expectations about the world that the world will not consistently meet. Spoiling a dog feels like love from the inside. From the dog's perspective, it can look very different. Today we are going through 10 signs that the balance may have tipped. Not to make you feel guilty, but to give you information worth having. 1. They refuse to eat their regular food. Your dog has perfectly good food in their bowl. Nutritionally complete, the same food they have eaten without complaint for months. And they walk away from it. They stand near the bowl and look at you. They wait. And eventually you add something. A topper. A treat. Something from your plate. And they eat. What has happened is straightforward behavioral conditioning. The dog has learned that refusing the bowl produces a better outcome than accepting it. They are not ill. They are not experiencing a sudden aversion. They are running a strategy that has worked reliably and will continue working as long as the pattern holds. A truly hungry dog eats. A spoiled dog holds out for the upgrade they have learned is coming if they wait long enough. And the longer the pattern runs, the more entrenched it becomes. 2. They bark or whine until they get what they want. Demand barking is one of the clearest behavioral markers of a dog that has learned their vocalizations control their owner's behavior. It develops through a process that is entirely human created. At some point the dog barked and the owner responded with attention, with food, with access to something the dog wanted. The dog's learning system registered the outcome. Vocalization produces results, and so vocalization became a tool. The problem is not that the dog is communicating, the problem is the specific dynamic. A dog that has learned their owner's behavior can be reliably controlled through noise. A dog that escalates when the first level does not work. A dog that has, in effect, trained their owner more successfully than their owner has trained them. 3. They sleep in your bed and you cannot sleep. Co-sleeping with your dog is not inherently a problem. The research on it is largely positive when the dynamic is healthy. The problem is when the sleeping arrangement has become something the dog controls, rather than something you have chosen. The spoiled version looks like this. The dog takes the center of the bed. You accommodate. You wake up tired consistently. The idea of asking the dog to move produces guilt disproportionate to the request. That dynamic, where a sleeping arrangement disrupting your quality of life feels impossible to change because of how the dog might respond, is a sign that the balance of the relationship has shifted further than is healthy for either of you. 4. They cannot be left alone without destructive behavior. Some degree of separation and distress is normal and understandable, but there's a version of it that is specifically created and maintained by over-accommodation. A dog that has never been required to tolerate solitude, that has had every sign of separation discomfort immediately resolved by the owner returning, has not developed the capacity to self-regulate during alone time. Not because they are anxious by nature, but because the anxiety has never been given the opportunity to resolve on its own. The result is a dog that cannot be alone without destruction or vocalization. Not because separation is inherently unbearable, but because their history has never taught them it is survivable. 5. They growl or snap when moved from a spot your dog is on the couch. You ask them to move and they growl. Or they stiffen in a way that makes you decide it is easier to sit somewhere else. And so you sit somewhere else and the pattern holds. This is resource guarding that has been allowed to establish through a series of accommodations that each felt reasonable in the moment. A dog that controls human movement through threat, even low-level threat, is a dog whose behavior has crossed into territory that affects safety. That is not a quirk to work around. It is a pattern to address directly. 6. They pull on the leash and you follow. The walk has become something the dog runs entirely. They go where they want, at the speed they want, stopping when they choose. You are attached to the other end of the leash, being steered through the neighborhood by a dog that weighs a fraction of what you do. The spoiled dimension is not the pulling itself. That is a training issue. The spoiled dimension is the owner who has tried to address it, found it difficult, and stopped trying. Who has restructured the entire walk around the dog's preferences because the alternative requires sustained effort and the dog resists. The walk belongs to both of you. A dog that has never been taught that is a dog, that has been let down by the training process. 7. They jump on guests and you apologize for them. Your dog jumps on people. You say sorry, you hold the collar briefly and let go, and they jump again. And the guests manage it because they are polite. A dog that jumps on everyone is a dog whose enthusiasm has been prioritized over the comfort of every person they interact with. That is not kindness to the dog. That is the owner avoiding the friction of training. 8. They demand to be fed on their schedule, not yours. The dog that circles, demands, whines, and paws until fed, regardless of whether the scheduled feeding time has arrived, has learned that their own escalating behavior is the mechanism that controls the household routine. Dogs thrive with predictable routines managed by a calm, consistent owner. They do not thrive when they have learned that their own dysregulation produces outcomes. Feeding on your schedule, calmly and consistently, regardless of the dog's lobbying, is not withholding. It is structure. And structure, for a dog, is one of the most fundamental forms of care you can provide. 9. You have rearranged your life significantly around their preferences. There is a healthy version of adjusting your life for your dog, factoring their needs into your schedule, making genuine accommodations for their well-being. That is responsible ownership, and it is admirable. And then there's a version that has gone further. Declining invitations because the dog dislikes being alone for a few hours, not having guests because the dog finds them stressful, sleeping badly every night without addressing it, structuring every decision around what the dog will tolerate rather than what is reasonable for both of you. The distinction is whether the accommodations are serving the dog's genuine needs or serving their learned preferences, and the owner's difficulty tolerating the dog's discomfort. Those are different things, and only one of them is actually good for the dog in the long run. 10. You feel guilty enforcing any boundary if asking your dog to get off the couch, wait for their food, or walk on a loose leash feels like an act of cruelty rather than a reasonable expectation. That feeling is worth examining honestly. Guilt around normal, healthy boundaries is not a sign of how much you love your dog. It is often a sign of how much the dynamic has shifted. A dog that has learned their discomfort produces immediate owner capitulation, has been given a kind of power over the relationship that does not serve them. Because a dog living without structure is a dog living without the security that structure provides. Dogs do not need to get everything they want. They need consistency, safety, genuine affection, and an owner comfortable enough to hold a boundary without guilt. That confidence, the willingness to say no calmly and kindly, is not the opposite of love. It is one of the most important expressions of it. A spoiled dog is not a loved dog. It is a dog whose owner confused accommodation with care. The good news is that the same love that created the dynamic can be redirected to fix it. Drop a comment. I read every single one. Subscribe. New video every week. See you next time.